The twin moons of planet Varelia hung low in the dark sky, their pale light shining over broken towers and empty streets. The world was once full of green forests and silver lakes, but now it was only dust and hunger. The galactic law had taken everything: food, water, and even hope. Only the rich and the soldiers ate well, while the poor searched for scraps among ruins. In the middle of this dying land lived two sisters, Luma and Nara. They were young, their alien skin faintly blue and glowing under the moons. Nara, the younger one, was weak and trembling, her eyes hollow from hunger. Luma held her close, wrapping a torn cloth around her to keep her warm. "Please, Luma," Nara whispered softly, her voice almost gone. "I'm so hungry." Luma looked away, hiding her tears. "I know, little star," she said. "I'll find something, I promise." The wind howled through the broken metal towers like a ghost. Every sound made Luma's heart jump, because soldiers often patrolled these areas. Anyone caught stealing government food was shot without warning. Still, she couldn't just watch her sister die. She searched the ruins, moving silently between shadows. Her feet crunched on the dry ground, and her eyes searched every corner for something edible. Once she found a dried fruit, black and cracked. She sniffed it. It smelled of dust and chemicals. Still, she put it in her pocket. "Better poison than hunger," she whispered. When she returned, Nara was sitting on the cold floor, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her stomach growled loudly, echoing in the empty shelter. Luma sat beside her, broke the dried fruit and gave half to her. It was bitter, but Nara smiled weakly as she chewed it. "I wish we could leave this planet," Nara said, her voice trembling. "Maybe one day," Luma replied, forcing a smile. But deep inside, she knew there was no escape. Ships didn't land on Varelia anymore. The Galactic Empire had closed the skies. Then the ground shook. A deep thunder rolled through the night. Followed by a blinding flash in the distance, Luma and Nara froze. A second later, a burning light streaked across the sky like a falling star. It crashed far away, shaking the ground again. Flames lit the horizon, painting the sky red. What was that? Nara gasped. Luma's eyes widened, her heart racing. "That's not a meteor," she said slowly. "That's a ship." A human ship, she realized. Something almost mythical now. Humans hadn't been seen on Varelia for decades. The galactic law forbade any human travel to this sector. Luma stared at the glowing smoke in the distance. Her mind fought between fear and hope. If it was really a human ship, maybe there was food inside, maybe help, or maybe death. But hunger was stronger than fear. "I'll go," Luma said firmly. Standing up, Nara grabbed her arm, her eyes wide with panic. "No, please, it's too dangerous." Luma knelt beside her, brushing the dust from her cheek. "I'll be careful, little one, I promise," she whispered. "Stay here and keep quiet." She hugged her sister tightly, feeling how thin and fragile she had become. Then she turned toward the fire on the horizon and started walking. The night was cold, the air full of ash and static. As Luma moved closer to the crash site, she saw flashes of light, patrol drones scanning the area. She ducked behind wrecked walls, breathing hard. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't stop. Finally, she reached the edge of the crash. A silver pod lay half buried in the dirt, steam rising from its sides. It was covered in strange markings, human letters. The metal glowed softly in the darkness, and inside she saw movement. A faint blue light blinked from within the broken glass. She took one step closer, her breath fogging the air. The smell of burned fuel filled her nose. Suddenly, a loud sound made her freeze, the mechanical buzz of a drone. It flew above her, scanning the wreck, its red eye glowing. Luma pressed herself against the ground, holding her breath. The drone's light passed over her, pausing for a second. Her body shook, but it moved on, disappearing into the smoke. She slowly stood up, her legs weak, her eyes focused on something shining near the pod. A small metal box with a human emblem. She picked it up, her hands trembling. Inside were silver packs, sealed and labeled in strange words, but she could recognize one symbol, the sign of food. Her heart raced. She had found real food, something humans made, Clean, powerful, pure, enough to save her sister. Tears filled her eyes as she held it tight against her chest, but before she could leave, the pod made a noise, a soft hiss. She turned and saw a shape moving inside, a hand pressed against the cracked glass, human fingers still alive. Luma gasped, stepping back. The human was still breathing, trapped inside the broken pod. Her mind screamed. Should she help? Or run? The galactic law said humans were forbidden. Helping one could mean death. The night air grew silent, heavy with decision. Luma looked toward the distant city lights, then back at the pod. Her heart pulled in two directions, fear and compassion. In the distance, she could hear the sound of soldiers coming closer. If she stayed, they would kill her. If she ran, she could save Nara. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, "I'm sorry." Then she turned and ran into the darkness, clutching the food in her hands. Behind her, the sky glowed red, and the sound of human life faintly echoed under the starving sky. The fire from the fallen ship still burned against the dark sky, a lonely flame in a world that had forgotten warmth. Luma walked through the night, her body shaking from exhaustion, the metal food box pressed tightly to her chest. Behind her, the wreck of the human pod crackled and hissed, filling the air with smoke and strange light. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Not when her sister was waiting, hungry and fading. The wind howled through the ruins as she ran, her thin legs cutting through the dust. Each step echoed with pain, but the thought of Nara's weak smile pushed her forward. When she finally reached their shelter, the cold gray dawn was already creeping across the sky. Nara was still awake, sitting by a broken wall, her eyes dull and lifeless. When she saw Luma, she gasped weakly, "You came back." Luma dropped to her knees beside her sister, breathing hard. "I told you I'd find something," she whispered. Opening the box, the silver food packs glimmered faintly in the pale light. Nara's trembling fingers reached out, touching them as if they were made of magic. "What is it?" she asked. "Human food," Luma said softly. "Real food." For a moment, Nara just stared, afraid it might vanish if she blinked. Then Luma tore open one of the packs, a sweet smell filling the air, something they hadn't felt in years. Nara took a small bite, and tears filled her eyes. "It's warm," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It tastes alive." Luma smiled faintly, watching her eat, her own hunger burning deep inside. But she didn't take a bite. She wanted Nara to eat first, but the joy didn't last long. Outside, a faint rumble shook the ground, followed by a high-pitched mechanical hum. Luma froze, recognizing the sound, a search drone. She crawled to the window and peeked through a crack in the wall. A beam of red light swept across the ruins, scanning the ground like a hunting eye. Her heart pounded. They had followed her. Nara noticed her sister's fear. "What's wrong?" she asked. "They're coming," Luma whispered. "They found the crash site." She quickly hid the food box under a loose floor tile, then grabbed Nara's hand. "Stay quiet. No sound, no light," she said, pulling her into the shadows. Moments later, the drone's red beam flashed through the shelter. It scanned the room, stopping just inches from where the sisters hid. Luma held her breath, her hand over Nara's mouth. The drone buzzed louder, as if sniffing for heat. Then suddenly it moved on, the sound fading into the distance. The sisters waited in silence, hearts pounding in unison. Only when the world was quiet again did Nara speak. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Luma nodded. "I shouldn't have gone," she whispered. "They'll hunt us now." But before she could say more, pain shot through her arm. She looked down. A long gash was bleeding. The wound she got near the crash site now open and deep. She had ignored it before, too focused on bringing food home. Now the blood soaked through her sleeve. Nara's eyes widened. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," Luma said weakly, pressing her hand against it. "Just a scratch." But her voice shook. and her skin had turned pale. Nara crawled closer, tears filling her eyes. "You risked your life for me," she whispered. "You shouldn't have gone alone." Luma smiled faintly. "If I hadn't, you'd be gone by morning." Her voice was soft, but full of love. Then from outside came another sound, louder this time, heavier. Voices, mechanical footsteps, the rhythm of soldiers. Luma's heart dropped. "They're close," she said. "Too close." Through the cracks in the wall, she saw armored figures moving through the mist. Their armor shone with the galactic emblem, the mark of the enforcers. They carried scanners that glowed blue and weapons that hummed with deadly light. One of them shouted, "Search every ruin! The food thief is nearby." Nara's body trembled. Luma's mind raced. If they found even one piece of human tech, they'd both be executed. She turned to Nara and whispered quickly, "If they find me, you run. Do you understand?" "No," Nara whispered back, clutching her hand. "I won't leave you." "You must," Luma said firmly. "You have to survive." Tears glistened in her eyes, but her voice didn't shake. Outside, the soldiers drew nearer, their lights flashing through the cracks. Luma took a deep breath, standing slowly. She stepped toward the door. Her wound bleeding again, Nara whispered, "What are you doing?" Luma smiled faintly. "Buying us time." She grabbed a broken metal rod from the ground and hid behind the wall. The first soldier kicked the door open, his gun raised before he could react. Luma swung the rod with all her strength. Striking his helmet, the man fell, his light crashing to the floor. Another soldier shouted, "She's here!" Luma ducked behind a beam of concrete as shots of blue plasma ripped through the air. Smoke filled the shelter. Nara screamed, "Luma!" But her sister shouted, "Run!" The younger girl hesitated for a second, then crawled through a hole in the back wall. Escaping into the fog behind her, the sounds of battle echoed. Shouts, gunfire, and the crash of metal. Then silence. Nara kept running, her legs weak, her heart breaking. When she finally stopped, she looked back, the sky behind her glowing with the blue light of burning ruins. She fell to her knees, whispering, "Please be alive, Luma. Please." Somewhere in the smoke, the soldiers found nothing but a trail of blood and an empty food box, and above them the two moons watched silently, as if mourning the price of mercy under the starving sky. The next morning, Varelia's sky looked gray and lifeless. Smoke still rose from the ruins where the soldiers had searched all night. The wind carried the smell of burned metal and dust. Nara sat hidden under a broken bridge, her small body shaking, her hands pressed against her mouth to stop her sobs. She had been running since dawn, her feet bleeding, her mind lost between fear and grief. Her sister Luma was gone. She didn't know if she was alive or dead. Only the silence of the city answered her cries. The world above her groaned as a drone passed by. Its red eye scanning the streets, Nara held her breath until the sound faded. Then she whispered softly to herself, "I have to find her." Her voice trembled, but her heart refused to give up. She crawled out from under the bridge and looked toward the city's center. Tall towers of steel rose in the distance, the heart of the galactic government. That was where the food laws were written, and where the soldiers came from. And it was where they took prisoners. If Luma was still alive, she would be there. Nara began walking, her legs weak but her will strong. Every corner of the city showed the cruelty of the law. Children searched trash heaps. Old aliens begged near dead fountains. And everywhere, posters glowed on cracked walls. The same message repeated in bold silver letters. Food belongs to the worthy. Hunger is the price of disobedience. Nara tore one poster down and crushed it in her hand. Her eyes burned with anger and sorrow. She remembered Luma's voice, a gentle but brave. "Someday, Nara," her sister used to say, "we'll eat under a real sky again." Now that promise was all that kept her moving. Hours later, she reached the outer checkpoint. A long metal fence surrounded the central zone, guarded by drones and soldiers. The gate was marked with glowing red text, "Galactic Law Zone, Entry Forbidden." Nara hid behind a wrecked transport, watching as a group of prisoners were dragged inside. Among them, she saw a face that froze her heart. It was Luma. Her sister's hands were tied, her head lowered, her blue skin pale under the harsh light. She limped as two guards pushed her forward. Nara pressed her hand against her mouth to stop from screaming. Tears streamed down her face. She wanted to run to her to call her name, but she knew it would mean death for both of them. The soldiers led Luma through a tall gate and disappeared inside. Nara stayed hidden until they were gone. Then she whispered to herself, "I'll get you out." When night came, the city was quiet again. But the silence felt wrong. Too heavy, too controlled. Every screen on every wall suddenly lit up, showing the face of a galactic officer. His voice echoed through the streets, cold and proud. "Attention, citizens of Virelia. The law has been broken. 2 sisters from the lower districts are guilty of stealing from a restricted crash site. They made contact with humans, violating Galactic Code 71. The elder will face immediate punishment. The younger is to be hunted for questioning." Nara's heart stopped. They knew about her. She was not just a fugitive. She was a target. She ran through the alleys, her feet splashing through puddles, her breath fast and sharp above her. Searchlights moved across the city, scanning every shadow. She hid in an old tunnel under the ruins of a market. There she found others, thin, frightened aliens hiding in the dark. One of them, an old man with gray eyes, looked at her and whispered, "You should not be here, child." "They took my sister," Nara said. "She didn't do anything wrong." The man's expression changed. "Everyone says that," he said quietly. "But the law doesn't care." Then he leaned closer, his voice softer. "Was it true? Did you touch human technology?" Nara hesitated, then nodded. She showed him the small metal chip she had taken from the food box. It had strange human letters on it. Glowing faintly, the old man's eyes widened. "Hide that," he whispered urgently. "If they see that, they'll burn you alive." Nara quickly tucked it under her sleeve. "And what is it?" she asked. "It's not just food," the man said. "Humans leave things with purpose, always with purpose." Then he pointed toward the north. "Go to the old rail tunnels under Sector 9. There are people there who still believe in mercy. The rebels. Maybe they can help you, maybe they can help her." Nara listened, her heart torn between fear and hope. "Rebels?" she asked. The man nodded slowly. "They fight the law, but they are ghosts, always moving, always hunted." He handed her a torn piece of paper, marked with a simple symbol, a broken star. "Show them this," he said. "They will understand." Nara took it with trembling hands. She bowed her head, whispering, "Thank you." The man smiled sadly. "Don't thank me, little one, thank your courage. Most have forgotten how to fight." As she left the tunnel and stepped into the night, the sirens of the law began to wail again. The city glowed red under the alarm lights, but Nara didn't stop. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, on the distant towers of Sector 9. Somewhere beneath them, hope still breathed, and somewhere behind those walls, her sister still lived, waiting for her that night. As Nara disappeared into the darkness, the galactic broadcast repeated across every screen. "Human contact is forbidden. Compassion is treason. The law is eternal," but Nara whispered into the cold air, "No law can stop love." And under the silent stars, her journey to break the galactic law truly began. The tunnels beneath Sector 9 were cold. Wet and endless, Nara walked carefully, her hands brushing the damp walls, her breath echoing softly. The old man's words still echoed in her mind. "Find the rebels. Show them the broken star." Her feet ached, her stomach growled, but her heart burned with only one thought: save Luma. Faint lights flickered in the distance. She followed them through narrow passages filled with rusted pipes and broken cables. Every sound, a drip of water, a hiss of steam, made her jump. She had never been this far before. The lower tunnels were forbidden zones, places where people vanished and were never seen again. At last she reached a wide chamber, lit by faint blue lamps. Voices whispered in the shadows, and for a moment Nara froze. Then a figure stepped out, tall, wrapped in a dark cloak, with glowing silver eyes. "Who are you?" the stranger asked quietly. Nara took a deep breath, holding up the piece of paper with the broken star. "I'm looking for the rebels," she said softly. "They told me you can help." The figure studied her for a long time, then slowly nodded. "Follow me," they said. Nara followed through a maze of tunnels until they entered a large underground room filled with people. Old, young, alien, and broken. They were all different species, all wearing scars from the same war. At the center of the room was a table covered with maps, holograms, and strange machines. An older woman looked up from the table, her skin pale gray, her left arm replaced with metal. "So," she said, "another lost soul finds the star." Her voice was rough but kind. Nara stepped forward, holding out the small metal chip she had taken from the human food box. "I found this," she said, "near the human crash." The room fell silent. Even the hum of the machine seemed to pause. The woman took the chip carefully, studying the glowing symbols on its surface. "This is human technology," she said softly. "Very old. Very dangerous," Nara frowned. "It came from their food, didn't it?" The woman shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "This isn't food, child. This is data. Human medical data." "Medical?" Nara asked, confused. The woman nodded. "It holds something the Empire fears most. Knowledge that could heal the weak, strengthen the poor, and break their control." She looked around at the others. "It's the Cure Gene Project," Nara's heart skipped. "Cure?" "Yes," the woman said. "Humans tried to create a serum that could make alien bodies adapt to harsh planets. Stronger, healthier, unbreakable. But the Galactic Law banned it," another rebel said. "They said it would destroy the natural order." Nara felt her chest tighten. "So this could save my sister?" she whispered. The woman looked at her carefully. "Is she sick?" Nara nodded, tears filling her eyes. "She's starving, weak?" They took her for stealing human food. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the woman placed the chip in a small machine, and a soft blue hologram appeared. Human text, strange and beautiful. She pointed to a formula that glowed in the light. "This is the serum," she said. "We have the data, but not the full code. The rest is still in the human ship that crashed," Nara's breath caught. "The crash site?" she whispered. "But it's full of soldiers." "Yes," the woman said, "which means getting it will be almost impossible." "But if we don't," another rebel said, "the Empire will find it first and they'll destroy it forever." Silence filled the chamber, heavy and full of danger. Then Nara stepped forward, her eyes steady. "I'll go," she said. Everyone turned to her in shock. "You?" The woman said. "You're just a child." "I'm her sister," Nara said, "and I promised her I'd bring her home." Her voice was trembling but full of fire. The woman stared at her for a long time, then slowly smiled. "You have her spirit," she said. "The fire of those who still remember love." She handed Nara a small device, like a glowing bracelet. "This will help you read the human codes," she said. "But be careful. The Empire will kill for this." Hours later, Nara climbed out of the tunnels and into the night again. The air was cold and the stars were hidden behind clouds. She could see the smoke from the crash site far in the distance, still burning. Still guarded, she wrapped the bracelet around her wrist, its faint light pulsing softly. It felt warm, almost alive. As she walked, her thoughts drifted to Luma. She imagined her sister's soft voice saying, "Be brave, little star." And for the first time since the attack, Nara felt something stronger than fear, purpose. The rebels watched her go, whispering among themselves. "She's just one girl," one said. "Yes," the woman replied. "But one girl can change a galaxy." When Nara reached the edge of the ruins, the night was silent again. The soldiers had set up camp around the wreck, searchlights sweeping across the black sand. She crouched low, moving like a shadow between the rocks. Her small body slid past the guards. Unseen, she reached the broken pod, the same one Luma had entered. It was colder now, covered in ash, but inside, she saw the same blinking light, the human cryopod. Still working, Nara climbed inside, her heart racing. She found the control panel covered in dust, the human letters glowing faintly. Her bracelet beeped softly, translating the code. Then she saw it, a file marked Gene Serum Adaptive Type H. Her eyes widened. "This is it," she whispered. Before she could download it, a voice shouted behind her, "Hands up! Step away from the wreck!" A red light filled the air. Soldiers. Nara turned, her heart pounding. Clutching the bracelet, the sergeant stepped closer, his weapon aimed at her head. "You broke galactic law," he said coldly. "Contact with human tech is death." Nara's voice trembled. "It's not a weapon. It's a cure," the man smirked. "There is no cure for hunger." He raised his gun, but before he could fire, a sudden explosion rocked the ground. The rebels had come. Fire and smoke filled the air. Nara ran, clutching the bracelet tight as the ship burned behind her. The secret of humanity now burned within her hands. The night burned red above Veralia. Explosions flashed across the sky as the rebel attack tore through the soldier camps near the crash site. Nara ran through the chaos, clutching the glowing bracelet to her chest, her heart pounding like thunder. Dust and fire filled the air, the sound of plasma rifles echoing through the ruins. Behind her, the human pod collapsed in flames. But the data chip, the gene serum file, was safely stored in her bracelet. She didn't stop running until she reached the dark edge of the city. Only then did she collapse beside a broken wall, gasping for air, her hands shaking. Her clothes were burned, her skin bruised, but her eyes burned with determination. She whispered into the night, "Hold on, Luma. I'm coming." Hours passed before she reached the central district again. The streets were quiet now, the air thick with tension. Every building was covered with glowing warnings. Curfew active. Rebels will be executed. Nara hid her face beneath a torn hood and slipped through the alleys. Her bracelet glowed faintly beneath her sleeve, a dangerous light she dared not show. She knew where she had to go, the Galactic Detention Tower, the place where her sister was held, a tall black structure that stabbed into the clouds like a blade, surrounded by drones and soldiers. As she stared at it from the shadows, fear crept into her chest. It was suicide to go in alone, but she had no choice. Her sister's voice echoed in her memory. "If one of us escapes, make it count." Nara touched the bracelet and whispered, "I will, Luma." Then she started toward the tower. Inside, the corridors glowed cold and sterile. The sound of boots and machines filled the air. Luma sat in a small metal cell. Her wrists bound, her face pale from exhaustion. Her wound from the crash had reopened, blood marking the floor beneath her. But even in pain, her eyes were calm. She wasn't afraid for herself, she was afraid for Nara. A door opened and the commander entered, tall, armored and cruel. His name was Vorak, the enforcer of the galactic law on Varelia. He looked at her with cold amusement. "So," he said slowly, "you are the one who touched the human pod." Luma lifted her head weakly. "I did what I had to do." "For food?" he mocked. "Or for power?" She glared at him, her voice steady. "For love." The commander's smile vanished. "Love," he repeated, as if it were a disease. "The most dangerous crime of all." He turned away, his metallic cape sweeping across the floor. "Your sister will join you soon," he said, "and then the law will be complete." Luma's heart sank. "Nara," she whispered. "No." That same night, Nara found her way into the lower levels of the tower. She moved like a shadow, hiding behind machines and broken pipes. Every few seconds, soldiers passed by, but she waited patiently, silent as stone. Finally, she reached a security panel glowing with alien script. Her bracelet pulsed, translating the code. With trembling fingers, she hacked the system. A door hissed open, leading to the cells. Luma was chained to the wall when she heard the sound. She looked up, thinking it was another guard. But then she saw her. Nara stood there, tears in her eyes. "Luma," she whispered. Luma's breath caught. "Nara? No, you shouldn't be here." But Nara ran forward, wrapping her arms around her sister. Sobbing, "I found it, Luma. I found the cure," she said, showing the bracelet. "It can heal you. It can heal everyone." Luma touched her face gently, her smile weak. "My brave little star," she whispered. "You did it." But before they could speak again, an alarm blared through the tower. Red lights flashed across the walls. Soldiers' voices echoed down the corridor. "She's here." "The fugitive!" Vorak entered the cell block with a group of guards, his expression filled with rage. "Well," he said, clapping slowly. "The family reunion I didn't expect." Nara stood in front of Luma, her fists clenched. "Let her go," she shouted. The commander smirked. "You think you can bargain with me, little one?" Nara took a deep breath, then lifted the bracelet. "I have something you want," she said. "The human serum data." Vorak's eyes widened slightly. He stepped closer. "Give it to me and maybe I'll let her live," Luma whispered. "Don't trust him." But Nara's voice shook as she said, "Promise," Vorak smiled. "Of course, child," Nara hesitated, then removed the bracelet and held it out. The commander snatched it from her hand. He examined it for a moment, then laughed. "This," he said, "is the reason humans are banned." Then, without warning, he crushed the bracelet under his boot. The glowing lights shattered into dust. Nara gasped, falling to her knees. "You liar!" she screamed. Vorak leaned down, his voice cold. "The law does not make promises." He raised his weapon toward Luma. Nara jumped in front of her, shouting, "No!" The blast hit the wall beside them, scorching the metal. Luma pushed Nara away, her voice trembling. "Run!" But soldiers surrounded them. Weapons drawn, Vorak ordered. "Take the younger one alive, the elder dies here." They dragged Nara out of the cell, kicking and screaming. "Luma!" "No, please," her voice echoed down the corridor. Luma's tears fell silently, her heart breaking with every scream that night. The tower lights burned bright over the silent city. Nara sat locked in another cell, shaking. She could still hear the echo of her sister's voice. On the other side of the wall, Luma whispered softly through the cracks. "Don't cry, my little star," she said, her voice faint but full of love. "As long as you live, our story isn't over." And when the night grew quiet, Nara whispered back, "I'll find a way." Her tears fell on the cold floor, but her eyes burned with fire because even in chains, her heart still carried her sister's light. The galactic law had won for now, but in the dark, something far stronger was being born. A promise, a spark, a rebellion. The tower stood silent under the cold light of Virelia's moons. Inside its dark walls, pain and fear lived like shadows that never slept. In one cell, Nara sat curled on the floor, her hands shaking, her eyes red from crying. Her heart still echoed with the last words she heard from her sister. "As long as you live, our story isn't over." Hours passed, or maybe days, and she could no longer tell. The lights never dimmed, the guards never spoke. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Luma's face. And the moment when the commander crushed the bracelet, crushing hope with it. But what the commander didn't know was that Nara had hidden one small vial. A single drop of glowing liquid, the last piece of the human serum. She had taken it from the crashed pod before the explosion. And now it was her only secret, her only weapon. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. 2 guards opened the door, pulling her to her feet roughly. "Move," one said coldly. "The commander wants the prisoner ready." Nara didn't resist, her mind calm in a strange way. As they led her through the halls, she saw broken cells, empty eyes, and flickering lights. Virelia's prison wasn't made only of metal, it was made of despair. Then suddenly the tower shook. The lights flickered red, alarms blaring through the halls. Explosions thundered from above. "Rebel attack!" A soldier shouted. Chaos filled the corridors. Fire, smoke, and panic. In the confusion, one of the walls cracked open, revealing a dark tunnel behind it. Without thinking, Nara kicked one of the guards and slipped into the opening. She ran through the smoke-filled passage, coughing, stumbling, but never stopping. The tunnel led deep underground, where the air was cold and silent. Somewhere behind her, she could still hear the sound of blasters and shouting. But all she cared about was one thing, and finding Luma. She reached a large chamber filled with broken pipes and fallen beams. A weak voice called out from the darkness, "Nara." Her heart leaped. She turned and saw her sister, lying on the floor, her body covered in dust and burns. Luma was alive, but barely. Nara fell to her knees beside her, tears streaming down her face. "Luma, I thought you were." "I'm still here," Luma whispered weakly, her lips trembling. "I waited for you." Nara held her tightly, feeling how cold her sister's skin had become. She could barely feel her heartbeat. "Don't talk," Nara said. "I'll fix this." She pulled out the vial, the last drop of human serum, glowing faintly like a blue star in the dark. Luma's eyes widened. "You kept it," she whispered. Nara nodded. "It's all that's left, but it will heal you, I know it will." Luma smiled faintly, shaking her head. "No, little star, you need it more." Nara frowned. "What are you saying?" Luma's breathing was shallow, her voice soft as wind. "My body is broken, Nara. Even if I live, they'll find us again, but you still have a chance." "No." Nara cried, "I won't lose you again." Luma reached up, touching her sister's face. Her hand trembled, but her smile was warm. "Listen to me," she said. "This isn't just medicine, it's hope, it's strength. The serum was made to help others survive, not just one person." Tears rolled down Nara's cheeks.
"I can't live without you," she whispered.
Luma smiled gently. "Then live for me." Outside, the walls rumbled as explosions drew closer. The rebels were storming the tower, fighting to break through the defenses. The ground shook beneath them, dust falling from the ceiling. Luma closed her eyes, her voice weak but steady.
"Promise me, Nara," she whispered.
"You'll take the serum and run?" Promise you'll use it to free others, to give them what we never had." Nara looked down at the glowing vial. The blue light reflecting in her tears, she could feel her heart breaking. But she nodded. "I promise," she said softly. "I'll make it count." Luma smiled faintly, her breathing slowing. "Good," she whispered. "That's my brave little star." Nara held her close one last time. Then she pressed the vial against her own arm. The serum burned like fire, flooding through her veins. She gasped, her body trembling as the light spread across her skin. Pain turned to warmth. Warmth turned to strength. The hunger, the weakness, and gone. For the first time, she felt power, real power. Not to destroy, but to protect. Luma's voice faded. "Now. Run!" And as the soldiers burst into the chamber, Luma reached for a broken console. She smiled softly at her sister. "For you," she said, and pressed the switch. A blinding flash filled the room, the reactor exploding behind her. The shockwave threw Nara through the tunnel, flames chasing her through the darkness. She hit the ground hard, her ears ringing, her heart breaking. When the smoke cleared, the chamber was gone. Buried in fire and rubble, Luma was gone too. But her voice still echoed in Nara's mind. "Live for me." Outside, the night was alive with fire and light. The rebel ships were fleeing into the clouds. Chased by galactic fighters, Nara stumbled out of the ruins, her eyes glowing faint blue from the serum. She was different now, faster, stronger, no longer weak. Her heart burned with sorrow, but also with something new, purpose. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I'll finish what you started." Luma. And as the galactic tower crumbled behind her, Nara walked into the rising dawn. The wind carried ashes and hope across the ruined city. And somewhere, far above, the stars seemed to glow a little brighter. For even under a dying sky, love had found a way to live. The twin suns of Varelia rose slowly over the ruined skyline. Ashes floated in the air like gray snow. Soft but heavy with loss, the galactic tower lay in pieces. Its metal walls melted and broken, and among the wreckage, one figure walked through the smoke. Small, tired, but unbroken, it was Nara. Her body carried scars from the fire, but her eyes glowed faintly blue. The last light of the human serum pulsed in her veins, giving her life, giving her strength. Every step she took was heavy. But her heart whispered only one name, Luma. She walked until she reached the edge of the wasteland. Where the city met the silent plains, the ground was blackened by war, but the wind was cool. She knelt on the dirt, pressing her hand into it, feeling its emptiness. "This world has forgotten love," she whispered, "but I won't." For hours, she sat there watching the horizon burn. Her mind replayed every moment, the crash, the hunger, the chase, the sacrifice. Each memory cut deep. But behind the pain was something brighter, the promise her sister had made her keep. Live for me and free them all. That night, Nara returned to the tunnels beneath Sector 9. The rebels had survived the battle, hiding deep underground. When she entered their chamber, the crowd fell silent. The leader, the gray-skinned woman with the metal arm, looked up in shock. "You survived," she whispered. Nara nodded. "My sister didn't." Her voice was soft but steady.
She held out her hand, glowing faintly with the light of the serum.
"But her sacrifice lives inside me." The rebels gathered around her, eyes wide with wonder. "She carries the serum," someone whispered. Nara nodded again. "It's real and it works." A murmur spread through the group, a sound like the first spark of fire after darkness. The woman stepped closer, studying Nara's glowing veins. "The Empire will come again," she said. "They'll hunt you. They'll burn everything to stop this." "I know," Nara said. "That's why we have to fight." For the first time, the rebels saw not a starving girl, but a leader. Her courage gave them something they had lost long ago: belief. Together they began rebuilding. They repaired their broken radios, sent messages across hidden frequencies. They whispered a single phrase into the dark. Hope has returned to Varelia, and slowly across the galaxy others began to answer. Miners from distant moons, workers from silent colonies, and even soldiers who had lost faith. They all heard about the hungry girl who had defied the law, and the sister who had died to save her. Their story became a spark, and the spark became a flame. Weeks passed, and the rebels struck back. They attacked supply lines, freed prisoners, destroyed data centers. Each time, Nara led them, her body stronger, her senses sharper. But she never forgot what gave her strength. Every night before she slept, she whispered into the stars, "Luma, I'm still fighting, The galactic broadcast tried to erase the story. They called her a criminal, a mutant, a threat to peace. But the people knew the truth. They painted her symbol in a small blue star and on walls and doors. They shared her name in whispers, Nara, the sister of hope. One night during a storm, the rebels received a signal from deep space. It was human. The same frequency that matched the ship which had crashed on Virelia. The message was faint but clear. To anyone who can hear us. The serum was not a weapon. It was a gift. Keep it safe. For all life, Nara listened. Tears filling her eyes, she smiled softly. We will, she whispered. We'll finish what you started. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about her or her sister. It was about every world that had suffered under the same cruel law. Every child who had gone to sleep hungry. Every heart that had forgotten how to hope. The final battle came months later. The Empire sent fleets to crush the rebellion. But Nara stood at the front, leading not an army of soldiers but of survivors. People of every kind, human, alien, hybrid, standing side by side. When the first ship descended from the clouds, Nara raised her voice. Her words echoed across the battlefield. They took everything from us, food, freedom, love, but we still have each other. And that is something no law can destroy, the crowd roared. The sky lit up with fire as the fight began. The Empire fell that day, not from weapons but from courage, from a sister's promise kept across the stars. Years later, under a bright new sky, a monument stood where the tower once was. 2 figures carved from silver stone, one standing tall, one kneeling, their hands joined at the base. The words were simple. For Luma, who gave everything, for Nara, who turned loss into hope. Children gathered around it, their eyes wide with wonder. An old rebel told them the story again, how 2 sisters changed the galaxy with nothing but love, and above them the twin suns shone brighter than ever, as if Luma herself was watching from the stars, smiling down because the truth had outlived the Empire, because the law had fallen, and because even in the darkest galaxy, love had found a way to shine.